Hey guys, thanks for joining us for our first episode of Tales Around the DragonBone Hearth. It is a show that gives us an opportunity to show off some of the talent and skills from the people that brought you and are making DeFi Kingdoms and the ones that are putting in the work to bring you new developments every week. On today's episode, we have our first guest, Mr. Frisky Fox himself, giving us a behind the scenes look at some of his coding capabilities, as well as what he does on a daily basis to keep this engine running. After that video, you'll see a one-on-one interview where I get a chance to ask about his experiences, his background, more information about him, and I'm sure I'll have some extra questions in there trying to understand what he's talking about in the video. Thanks for tuning in and greatly appreciate it. Look forward to more content like this coming out. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.
Hey everyone, it's Frisky Fox. I'm going to be showing a little bit about what I do with Solidity and sort of my flow. And I actually started this about 20 minutes ago, and my old recording thing basically cut out halfway through. So had to set up a new recording, and here I am starting again. So I guess I'll just have to catch up on some of the things. Basically what I want to do is make a new smart contract for snapshot airdrops. And the idea with this is, with our new sigil system, we actually have the ability to see what your balance was at every single block in the past. So if you had 20 sigil at a certain block, then it will know about it. And so this opens up some cool opportunities for us. One thing we could do is we could make a new system where snapshots and airdrops are more automatic, so that we as a admin could basically register a new snapshot and say, I want to give one egg to anybody who had over 50 sigils at block number 600 or something like that. And then we would basically just register that here, and then our end users could come in and say, hey, I had over 50 sigils on that block number, so I want to claim my airdrop. And it will be able to check and see if they actually did have that much, and then airdrop them that egg. And so that's the whole idea there. It'll help to streamline our snapshots, make it able to do a lot more frequent snapshots, and a lot less admin overhead, so that instead of us having to track it all the way along the way and then manually do the airdrops, it can be a lot more automatic. And I'm really excited about this. So this is kind of a brief mind map that I drew up about how that might work. We've got snapshots, airdrop contract, which will be speaking with the sigil contract to get user balances. And it will then also speak with the airdrop claim contract to actually put the airdrop in their account so they can claim it. And part of the reason we do it like this is because the airdrop claim contract already has a lot of the permissions already set up to be able to mint those items. So let's head over to the code and see what we got going on there. Now, I set up some of this in my previous recording, so I'm going to go over it instead of just starting over. But basically, I made a new contract called Snapshot Airdrop. And in this contract, I inherited from Access Control Upgradable and the Pausable Upgradable, which is Open Zeppelin smart contracts that you can inherit from. I set up a struct, which was the snapshot config. The idea is that admins should be able to come in and create as many snapshot configs as they want to, and they'll basically set what the item that they want to airdrop is, how many of them will be airdropped, and the block number that it should be airdropped at, and then the required tokens to have in order to qualify for it. For example, maybe you need 100 sigil, so you'd put in 100 sigil there. And then just a little note explaining what it is. And some events, which actually don't have the right information in here right now. Let's see, snapshot config created. I basically just want to return what the snapshot config is. So snapshot config and we'll probably put some more info in there later. And then when somebody comes in to claim it, we want to register what that is as well. So and we'll probably change some of those as we go, so no need to get it all correct just now. The initialize method just basically starts your contract, sets it up when it's first created, and what we want to do is just initialize access control when possible and set up some roles. There's the admin role, which can create other roles, and there's the moderator role, which will be able to do some of these admin methods that we want. Speaking of admin methods, we've got a pause and unpause method, very useful. A method to add a snapshot config, which just accepts all the parameters there, and only moderators can do that. And a method to view the snapshot airdrops. This is a useful one that the front end will probably use to just see what snapshot airdrops are available and show it to the user. And then a method to actually claim a snapshot airdrop. So the end user, if they see a snapshot airdrop and they say, hey, I had over 100 C joules at that block, I want to claim that snapshot, they'll be able to hit the button and actually claim it. So I set all that up, and then I shifted gears to create a script to deploy this, which is a pretty useful one. And for this, I just kind of copy pasted one of our other scripts. They're all pretty similar, and I just put in all the things that we care about. So basically, we just want to deploy our snapshot airdrop contract and store it here in a variable, wait for it to actually deploy, and then print out what the address is. And the rest of this is just some boilerplate around that. So pretty simplistic. And then I shifted gears again and created a test. I like to do test-driven development, which means you write the tests as you develop it rather than waiting till the end. And that's very useful because then you can sort of run it as you go and see how you're doing and see if your tests start to pass. And the idea is you can actually write your tests out before you create your code. And so that way you can kind of know that once all the tests are passing, then you know you're done. So I especially like that. And I set up this test here with just some very basic things. All that it does so far is it just calls that method that I created earlier over here, and it deploys that contract to my local test environment. And how that works here, I'm actually using Hardhat. And Hardhat's really cool because it actually creates an entire blockchain on my laptop when I run this test. So basically spins up a new Ethereum machine with a blockchain and all that stuff, and it allows me to basically execute transactions and things on that blockchain. And then after it's done, it just erases everything in that blockchain. So it's just my own little world. So for this test, I basically set it up, snapshot airdrop, I deploy it here, and then my first test is just to see if it actually is able to successfully deploy. So it just sees if the address exists after this runs here. And then to run that, I just do hardhat test, and then the location, and then snapshot airdrop.test.js. So we'll go ahead and run that and see what it does. So this test ran successfully and deployed it, and we didn't get any errors. So that's a great start. So now we can actually start to do some code. And I've got a pretty helpful AI here that might be adding some little suggestions here and there. But the first thing I want to flesh out is being able to add a snapshot config. So instead of starting the code right away, I'm actually going to create a test first. And this is part of that test-driven development that I was talking about. So I want to make sure that I can, admins can create new snapshot configs. And what I want to do is I actually first want to make sure ensure non-admins cannot create snapshot configs. I want to make sure only people that have that role can do it. So my AI here is trying to be helpful. So it put in some of this. I want Bob to try to create snapshot config. This is a problem. We actually called it add snapshot config. So go ahead and rename that. And the parameters are the reward item, quantity, block number, required tokens, and note. So we got to put in those ones. Reward item. We're going to do contracts.eggs. We'll just do DFK gold egg. And to be able to do that, we're going to have to actually deploy those gold eggs. So I'm just going to add a quick thing here. Deploy eggs. Make sure that the eggs are deployed. And this is, again, because anytime that we run this test, it creates a brand new blockchain on my local. So it doesn't have anything yet deployed, and I need to make sure that I first deploy the eggs. So we'll deploy the eggs. We will also pass in the other parameters. So those were quantity. Let's give away 5 gold eggs. We need a block number for it to happen at. So I'm going to actually figure out what the current block number is. And I'm going to do like 10 in the future. So we've got block number plus 10. And then the requirement, I want them to have 50 sigils, and the note, gold egg test snapshot. Okay, so I'm going to try to create that. Now this is trying to call this as my Bob account, which is just a regular user. And he shouldn't have access to do this. So we're going to run this and see what happens, and it should fail. It's probably not going to fail with this exact error message. So I might have to tweak that, but we'll go ahead and see what it does. And it passed. So it actually did fail with that error, access control error. Interesting. I guess my AI is smarter than I thought it was. So now let's make sure that admins actually can do this. Now my default account, which I don't have to actually connect because it's just by default, that one should have the permission. So if I don't connect to anything, it'll just call it as my default. And that one should have permission, so I would expect that this one actually will work. And I'm going to say, let's expect this to emit an event. And the event it will emit is snapshot config. I think I called it created. Not consistent. This is called add snapshot. This is called snapshot created. But oh well. That's life sometimes. So it's going to expect that that event will be output. And this one should actually fail because we haven't actually implemented that yet here. So we'll give it a try. Give it a run. See what happens. And I would expect this test to fail. And that's kind of what I was talking about, where we create tests that will fail and then we make them pass so that we know that we're done with that feature. And I might add some other ones here too, like get snapshot config ID1, just to sort of verify that it has what we expected. So you can see here my test failed. It expected that event to be emitted, but it wasn't. So let's go ahead and flesh it out. First thing we need to do is create the snapshot config. So snapshot config is the start name. We start it in memory, create a new one, basically passing in all the things there. And then we need to actually store this in storage. We also need to emit the event, so we'll go ahead and do that. We need to store snapshot config. And my AI is not going to know what to do yet because we don't have a variable yet for this. So we're going to go back up here and create some state variables. This is a mapping, and I want it to do it by ID, and it will store the snapshot configs. And it's basically just gonna loop through them there. I also want to have a count variable that will basically keep track of how many there are, so we know where to put any new ones in there. And I'm going to initialize that value to 0. You don't strictly have to do this because it does get initialized to 0 anyways if it's empty, but I like to be explicit here with the things I do. So store the snapshot config. It probably knows what to do now. Snapshot configs, snapshot config count. So basically if this is 0 at the start, which it is, it puts that one there. I actually do like to usually reserve the first one to be an empty one, just so that it's easier to test. So let's go ahead and do that too. We'll make a new empty snapshot config that will live at the first one. And then we will increment it by 1. So now we've got this one there. It's going to be at number 1 instead of number 0, and we'll increment the count. I want to change this event to also emit the ID of the snapshot. So this was 1. I'm going to have to actually increment this after we emit the event. Otherwise it's going to be the wrong thing there that gets emitted. And I think that should just about do it. We need to also update this to be the snapshot config ID. And I do like to prefix these with underscores. It's just a way that I like to keep track of those. So let's go ahead and run that test again. And it will first compile this again, and we'll see what it does, because I'm a little paranoid after my last one failed. Okay, so my test's passed actually, which is always fun. That means that basically this worked. It did emit that event, and now we need to get the snapshot ID. So we don't really have a method yet to get a snapshot config ID. Let's just add one. And my AI will probably write most of this for me. Snapshot config ID gets passed in, and it returns the configs with the snapshot ID. It's accessible to the public. It's a view method, which means it doesn't actually alter the blockchain, and it does return that config. So now we've got that there, we can just go ahead and see what my AI over here will think about that. Oh, we'll get rid of the to do. Maybe it's confused. There we go. It's actually being a little bit smarter. We didn't actually need to have this getter because this variable is already public for the snapshot configs. So I think this would actually work. It's just looking up the ID by that. So, oh well, let's ensure that it's correct. We want to make sure that the reward item is equal to the address of the egg, and that the reward amount is equal to 5. The start block should be what we set it to earlier. Or not start block, this is actually the, what do we call it? Block number. I kind of wonder though if we should actually have a expiration date for some of these snapshots where if you don't claim it in time, then you can't claim it anymore. Probably something to add in the future. And if we did that, maybe instead of calling it block number, we should call it start block. No, I think we'd still call it block number, but we'd want to have another expiration block in the future as well. So yeah, this is just helping us verify things. We don't need to verify that. It's probably enough right there. Let's go ahead and run it again to see what happens. Meanwhile, I'm going to go let my dog out. Okay, it's running the tests. and it failed. So it expected something undefined equal 5. So reward amount, that is the wrong name. I called it quantity here. So fix that, run it again. And this is kind of the way that we go for these types of things. We'll go ahead and get started on the next one too while that's running. Next thing I want to test is allows claiming snapshot airdrop. Looks like that test passed now, so that's great. So the first thing we want to do is I'll also note that basically each of these kind of builds off of each other. So all of these things that happen here still are there for this one. So I already have this one created now. And I want to let's see, should revert if claiming a snapshot before the block number. So if there's one in the future, like this one was 10 blocks in the future, and someone tries to claim it, it should fail. So let's connect as Bob, try to claim that snapshot airdrop, and it should revert with an error. And we haven't set that error yet, but I'm going to just say too early, probably. Or maybe just not ready yet. And my dog wants to come back in. So now what we're going to go to that contract again and put some require statements in. So when we call the claim snapshot airdrop, which I hope that's what we called it here, claim snapshot airdrop, we need to do some checks. Ensure the block number is in the past. So we're going to require the block.number, which is our current block number, is greater than the block number set in that snapshot ID. I think I'm also going to, well, no, I'll just keep that how it is. And the error we gave this was not ready yet, I believe. Yep, not ready yet. So let's go ahead and run that, make sure that runs. And let's think of other things while that's going. The AI can sometimes have some good advice for us too, but let's just say we want to advance the block number. I don't like that method actually. We have a special method for that. Advance block. Actually, it's advance block width. And we can just put it 15 blocks in the future, for example. Looks like my test passed. Now, if I try to claim, I would expect it to work. Or no, it would actually still revert because Bob doesn't have enough. So should revert if trying to claim without enough tokens. Enough tokens. So we'll run that, make sure that goes. It's not going to pass because we don't have this yet. But I do want to add that here as well. So ensure the user has enough tokens. Require. So this is where it gets to where we need to actually look at the C-Jewel contract and get how many they had. But let's see, required tokens. So the user's balance, I'll just say balance for now, has to be greater than or equal to that to qualify, or else it will say not enough tokens. So now the question is, how do we get this balance? And my test isn't happy about this. Need to import that. So this is where we need to actually involve the C-Jewel contract. And the Sigil contract we're actually calling vote escrow reward pool, because it won't always be called Sigil. Sometimes it'll be called Estual. So we call it something a bit more agnostic. We do have a interface for it. And this interface allows us to look at things like user info and such like that. But actually, we don't really care too much about the Sigil specific things. We really just care about what it inherits from, which is the ERC20 votes method. So what we're going to do is actually import an ERC20 interface. So let's see. ERC20 votes. Is there an interface for that? It's a good question. Maybe it's just iVotes. Yes, that is it. iVotes.sol, probably. So we need to also store the address here in the state. So I'm going to call this the snapshot token. And then we'll have I'll actually pass that into the initializer. And we will set it here. And then to do that, we're going to have to go back to our deploy script, and we're going to have to actually get the deployment done for that. So we'll just say, go to an example one that actually does what we want to do. Let's see. Here we go. So we want the vote escrow contract to be deployed. And we want to pass in that vote escrow address to the deploy script as an argument. Okay. And then here we want to also, instead of saying balance, we want to call iVotes with the snapshot token, and then get past votes of the user and the block number. Okay, this is probably going to fail in 50 ways, but we're going to go ahead and try it and see how we're doing. Okay. First of all, we're not importing iVotes yet, so let's go ahead and do that. See if I have any examples of it already. iVotes. Probably just gonna have to import it. Figure out where that is. Open Zeppelin, contracts, governance, utils, iVotes. What was that again? Contracts, governance, utils. Okay. That might work better. I'm not actually sure if it is the right one though. Looks like it is. Cool. Alright, try it again. So interfaces are sort of a way for one smart contract to call another smart contract's methods. Let's see what's going on. Deploy vote escrow reward pool. Okay, so this is the wrong path. That's very helpful. Didn't put in the right one. Deploy vote escrow reward. There we go. Wait for that to deploy. Great. So our tests are passing again. This reverted because the user didn't have enough tokens at that time. I want to make another test though that shows what it would do if someone did have enough. So to set that up, we actually need to give another user, we'll call her Carol, enough sigil tokens. Give Carol some sigil tokens. I'll call them snapshot tokens actually, just to be agnostic. Maybe we'll just call them vote escrow tokens so our AI isn't confused. It can be more helpful. So rather than minting it, we're actually just going to create lock, which is a method of the vote escrow. And I'm just going to actually go to that test and borrow some example code. Here we go. So we're going to give Carol, we're going to put in 100 joules. We're going to stake it for 1,095 days, which is the full amount. And that should give Carol 100 sigils. So we'll do that, and then we'll go ahead and try this again. Should allow Carol to claim the snapshot airdrop, because she does have enough. So this is going to wait, claim snapshot airdrop, connecting as Carol, and it's going to hopefully emit the snapshot airdrop claimed method, or event, which actually I think we just called it claimed, but maybe we should. Now let's just call it claimed. So claimed event. And this is going to fail because we don't actually emit that event yet. But we're still going to run it and see how we're doing. Okay, something's failing. Decimals is not actually at the path. Sometimes when I copy paste things, it doesn't properly put the correct include path. I think that did it. Decimals, yep. And we'll just put this here too. Basically what that does is just expands it to 18 decimals, which ERC20 tokens generally have 18 decimals, and so we don't have to actually type out all 18 decimals every time and probably make mistakes. So let's run that test again and see where it's at. While that's running, we're going to have to look here and see what do we have to do on the claim snapshot airdrop method. We're going to have to emit the event. Okay, the test failed because claimed event was not emitted. So emit the claimed event. And we should actually also record that the snapshot that the user has claimed the airdrop. And we need to also create a new airdrop for the user via airdrop claim contract. So in order to record that the user has claimed the airdrop, we actually need to have another state variable up here that will record those. So we're going to have a mapping of address. In order to figure out which ones a user has claimed, we need to have a mapping within a mapping. That would be a Boolean variable. So that's a little bit more complex, but it'll make sense down here. So basically what we want to do is make sure that the claimed snapshots for the message.sender, which is the user calling this, and for that snapshot ID is false. That's what this not means here. And if it is not false, then it's already been claimed. And that's not what we want. So we'll probably check this later in our test. But to go back to here, we need to record that the user has claimed the airdrop first. So we'll just set that same thing up there to true for this user. And then we need to create a new airdrop for the user via airdrop claim, which is a little bit more involved. Let's go ahead and run this and see how we're doing. We'll add this as a to-do. In order to do this, we're going to actually have to add another variable up here for the airdrop claim contract. And I might as well start on that right now. Pass in the airdrop claim address, and we're going to store it here. Then we have to go back to the deploy and actually deploy the airdrop claim method. Airdrop claim contract, I mean. And then pass that into here. So we're just setting that up right now. Our tests are passing, so that's great. Let's go ahead and run it again just with this change that we just made. Make sure that it actually deploys this correctly. I wonder if it's actually called airdrop claim. Nope, it's called airdrop. So that's why that was complaining. So let's go back to here and just rename that for completion. But it should probably, hopefully, still pass. And cannot read property address of undefined. Okay, probably because I changed it halfway through. So let's look in here. Yep, let's just try it again. And I would expect this to emit the claimed event. And then I'd also expect it to revert if she tries to claim it again. And let's see. Should revert trying to claim something that doesn't exist. That's a good one to test too. Let's just go ahead and test that too real quick. Tests are passing again, life is good. Let's make another require here to ensure that they're not trying to get one that doesn't exist yet. Make sure that the snapshot ID is less than snapshot config account and greater than 0, because 0 is not valid. Valid snapshot ID is the test we're giving it, or is the message we're giving it. Great. So let's run this again, make sure that passes, and let's start working on the actual creating of the airdrop for the user. Now for this to work, we're going to need another interface for iAirdrop claim. I know I've done this before elsewhere, so let's just, yep, looks like the Raffle Master imports it. So let's go back to here. I have to import the airdrop claim address. I'm not sure if that's the correct path to it though. I think we're actually already in the right path, so we can just do that. We need to actually create the airdrop for the user. Now if we look into this, no, it's not showing the correct, let's see. iAirdrop claim. Why is it not? Maybe it's not actually called create set airdrops, is what it's called. Okay. We'll go ahead and change that then. and this is going to have the token address. So we're going to put the reward item, and that actually gets passed in as an array because this actually can support doing multiple ones at once. Or no, it's not an array. I lied. Only one address. And then recipients is an array, and amount is array, and the note. So the recipients is going to be message.sender. The amounts is going to be the quantity, also an array, and the note is going to be that. Great. So let's try it again. And I do believe that set airdrops actually emits an event that we could probably look for, but let's see. Library is not installed. Interesting. What library? I think it's because I need to actually have a path. Let's try it. Okay, now we're getting more ugly errors. Implicit conversion from address 1, memory to address. That's for the message.sender. Now this is because the set airdrops method expects a unbound or a dynamic array, and I'm passing in an array that just has one property, and apparently it doesn't like that. So let's see how I do this elsewhere in RaffleMaster. I think I actually have to, be kind of tricky here and do it like this. Same thing with the amounts. It's kind of annoying, but we can work with it. So we'll call this recipients, and then the amounts is going to be this. We'll call this amounts, and try that again. And if we look in the actual method here that it's calling, I think it actually does emit, it emits a dropped event. So we could actually also check this in our test and see that it emits the drop event. And I'm going to start coding that right now. One of the ways we can do this is via the, instead of just checking it here, so this is failing because the address or the airdrop claim contract is saying, hey, this snapshot airdrop contract doesn't have permission to create airdrop claims. So we'll fix that. I think we'll fix that right now before we go forward. To correct that, we just need to basically grant the airdrop contract, or no, grant the snapshot airdrop contract the ability to create or to set airdrops, really. And to do this, we're actually gonna, let's see, we could do it this way, but there's actually a helper method that I like to call. So let's go back to here. When we're setting airdrops, it needs to have the moderator role. So we need to give this snapshot airdrop contract the moderator role. To do that, I'm gonna call this method with the moderator role and the snapshot airdrop address. And that should clear that up for us. So we'll let that run. And then while I'm at it, I want to inspect multiple ones here. This should emit the claimed event. It should also emit the airdrop dropped event. Cannot distribute more than the contract is holding. Okay. Another issue here is that it's trying to set an airdrop without that airdrop claim actually having any gold eggs in it. It says, oh, you can't do that. let's see how the Raffle Master does that. The Raffle Master actually uses the item minter contract to mint inventory items. So, I forgot about that. There's another contract we need to worry about, item minter. And that is going to enable us to mint the items first and then airdrop them. So the plot thickens. We'll just move that down here. Okay. So that's a little bit more complex than I had hoped, but possible to do as well. I actually think this might be a good pausing point. This is probably getting a little bit long, but hopefully this is a good way for you guys to see sort of how I code things and what I do. And I could finish this up and show you guys, but I think in the interest of time, Rissen's probably going to want me to close this up. So I'll go ahead and pause it here, and we will go from there. Thanks for watching.
Welcome to Tales Around the DragonBone Hearth. I have my friend, my colleague, my big boss man, Frisky Fox, with us today. Thank you for taking the time out of your day, and thank you also for shooting that video. Gave a lot of people an opportunity to see what you do on a daily basis and dispel the myths of the fact that you're at home naming every single hero.
Well, yeah. No, it was a lot of fun. When you first approached me with this idea, I was like, wow, that's a really cool way, because I know that in the past we've had some like streams from some of our people that would like do art or like how do we do like the pixel stuff, and we haven't really had a good look at like the coding stuff. Mostly because it's pretty boring, honestly. But it's like let's like try it out and let's sort of see if anyone's out there who is like interested in the Solidity side of things and like the code heads. So we're gonna see if anyone even enjoys this episode.
I mean, I feel like it's one of those things where you're just really into it or not. I'm huge into cooking and making all my own spices and sauces. So I could talk to you for 2 hours about fungus, but that's not exactly going to be interesting to most people. As somebody from my perspective, a little bit more of a layman, was really interesting. To my only view of coding was I brought up the video and I was expecting to see the matrix, just a bunch of ones and zeros. And really it just looked like a Word document with a black background. Is that?
Oh no, that's true. You got to have the black. For like many years, I would use a white background, and all my colleagues would make fun of me. So you got to use the black background.
It makes it more techy.
Yeah, and it's easier on the eyes because I always work in like it's in like my basement, and it hasn't got any windows in the room. It's totally like dark, and so yeah, I would probably have like headaches by the end of the day if I didn't use a black screen.
So as far as the coding goes, Solidity code versus the other types of coding out there, and I'm still learning about this a little bit. So what exactly is Solidity coding?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been doing coding for a long time, and I know all kinds of languages. And Solidity's very similar in a lot of ways, but also very different in a lot of ways. The similarities are just sort of all the standard things you'd use for coding, like if-then statements and like logic and functions and all that type of stuff that you're pretty well used to. The part that's hard to wrap your head around if you're already sort of like used to other programming languages is just the like architecture of like the call, like the whole ideology of like having a like request that then executes and then returns something like that, and having the start and the end, and then like the whole thing with like how do you handle gas fees and all that type of stuff. Those are all sort of like new things with Solidity that I had to spend a little bit of time to figure out. Okay, this is what's happening with that. This is how it works. It actually gets executed on every node, and it's always the same execution with the same input, same output. So you kind of have to work with that constraint and understand it. But then after you do, it's just kind of like, oh, just like any other language out there.
Is there more of a anxiety in the background when it comes to this kind of coding though? Because I've heard from other people that this is like the make it or break it. Like you don't make mistakes in this because it's cost money. Like as compared to other code where there's a glitch and something doesn't pop up right. Is that something that goes through your head while you're writing these contracts?
Oh yeah, 100%. Because you'll have like smart contracts out there that get exploited. And by the way, like when you say something is hacked on the blockchain, it's not really a traditional hack like what you might think of. It's actually a bug that was like some obscure thing that's like, oh, like this thing now is out there with the bug, and exploiting that bug is actually what it is. And the problem with that is in traditional software, you find a bug and you can fix it. Just update it and patch it, and it's okay. On the blockchain, a lot of times smart contracts can't be changed. In fact, they all can't be changed, really. Obviously, there's like state that you can change variables and stuff like that, but the code itself can't be changed. And there are some patterns you can do to like upgrade them and things like that to actually have some bugs get fixed now. And we actually like use that a lot for our in-game stuff. But it is higher stakes because a lot of people have like millions of dollars stored in these smart contracts. You do have to be very careful and spend a lot of time and like reread every line like 10 times and make sure there's no issues. Do a lot
The
of
fact that
testing.
it can't be changed is the thing that people also put the most trust in, right? That there's not that
Yeah.
bait and switch kind of, we're going to change this on you last minute. It's all public, it's all out there, and boom, it's done.
Yeah, it's a two-edged sword because there's a lot of really good things about that model, but also a lot of risk. So I think it's all about trying to find the balance. Like, how much trust do you want to have in the system? And if it's like zero trust, then of course you want to have like things that cannot be changed and it's all open source and everything like that, which is great. But also, if there's any bug, you're just SOL and everyone else loses their money. And then there's like trust minimized, which is like we trust the devs. And we have like multi-sigs and things so that if we want to change things, we can, but it's not like a single person can just be like, I'm going to do something. It has to be like a quorum of people that can do something. There's a whole spectrum of like solutions out there.
Very cool. So my next question when it comes to this is from my experience talking to people, there's a ton of people in our community, as well as people that we meet at events, that are interested in trying to grow into this industry. So when it comes to Solidity development itself, do you find that that's going to be their best bet? Do you think that's going to be the thing that grows the most as far as need? Or would you say if somebody was interested in becoming a Solidity dev, that they would have to do X, Y, and Z first?
No, that's a good question. I remember in Denver, I was there for ETH Denver, and I was in a Uber, and the driver was like asking me, he's like, so like, what's all this about? I see a lot of things here for like all these individuals that are here from out of town and stuff. And I was like, yeah, it's a thing for crypto. And he's like, oh, I'm actually like trying to learn coding. And I was like, stop whatever you're doing and learn Solidity instead, because you can find a job like that. There's a huge need right now out there for that. And it's because our project was trying to find anyone that we could who had any experience with Solidity, and there just weren't anyone out there. Like we were like very lucky and found some really good people like Mr. Fawn and like Magnus and others that we've hired in the past as well. But most people, it's just every single like one of those people had only been working in it for like 6 months. And it's just that they had a lot of experience from other things in the past, so that they had the kind of mind that was really good. But really that's what it is just if you're interested in it, learn it. And there's a lot of really good tutorials out there that are free, a lot of like really good resources. And there's also a lot of really good open and free like test nets. So like you could just experiment with it for free. So there's a lot of really good things out there in place right now. It's a lot easier to get started in it now than it was even like a year ago, but especially like 4 or 5 years ago. It's like way easier now. So I just say if you're interested in it, just start on it. If you have experience with any kind of like coding, that helps a lot. You might want to start out with like JavaScript or something easier first. But if you just like want to dive right into it and you have that kind of like confidence you can do it, I say, yeah, like you should do it.
In between degenning in Discord and posting memes, you might want to use your time on the internet to grow your skill base and possibly have a job in the future.
Honestly, yeah, like
watching charts go up and down, right?
There's been like 20 plus individuals in our community that have reached out and said, you know what, I didn't know how to do anything on the blockchain or any kind of coding, but this project inspired me to start. And so it starts out with just kind of like messing around, like what can I do to create a tool for like DFK or whatever, and then it evolves into more and more advanced things. And a lot of people have actually learned how to be Solidity and blockchain programmers just because of inspiration from this project.
Yeah, we have community members that started their own projects. We brought on to the team some of our community members because they just ended up being the most qualified people. And a lot of that comes down to what they were doing on a daily basis to better their skills. Which I got to imagine something like coding is something that you don't just learn and put it up on a shelf. It's something that you're practicing and doing on a daily basis to kind of hone those skills.
Yeah, for sure. It's just like any skill, you know, and especially in this field, it's actually like one of the things I like about it is that you have to constantly be learning every day, every week. Like there's some new piece of like technology that's out and you have to like follow up on it and read up on it because we're at like the very edge of like what is possible. And if you don't stay on top of it, you're going to get left behind. So it's almost like one of those things like you can't really learn about these things in school. It's not in any kind of a textbook. If it's in a textbook, it's already obsolete.
Yeah.
Like it's just stuff is just new all the time. So it's really fun because I like to learn and experiment. And I think a lot of people out there that have that kind of mindset would really, really love it too.
Well, I'll take the last couple seconds just to say thank you for your love of learning and wanting to do this. Because if it wasn't for you just being like, this is cool, I want to learn how to do this, we wouldn't be here today. So I just personally thank you, Fox, for getting all this started.
Yeah, I hit that like right back and say, you know, a huge kudos and thank you to our team. We have amazing people and also our community members. Like this project wouldn't be where it is without any of that. Like it's all of those things that sets anything apart. Like I could create all kinds of stuff, but if no one likes it or uses it or cares about it, then it's not going to be anything. And all of you guys here using it and caring about it, that's what makes this awesome. So thank you.
Well, and thank you for joining us today. We're going to wrap this up. Thank you for watching the video. Please like and subscribe. Let us know if you want to see more content like this. Maybe we can boss some people into showing some of their work, maybe some of the other coders, maybe some of the other artists. And thank you very much, everyone.
Bye.